Welcome back. In our last episode, we explored surface wind variability, wind shear, and how to use METARs and TAFs to stay ahead of changing conditions. Now let's keep building. Today, we'll go even deeper into local wind effects, terrain interaction, and how these impact real-life flying. Let's start with a powerful concept: topography shapes wind. The Earth's surface isn't flat. Hills, valleys, ridges, coastlines, and forests all influence airflow, sometimes subtly, sometimes dramatically. For instance, wind accelerates through narrow gaps, like valleys or mountain passes. This is known as the Venturi effect. As air is forced through a narrow channel, its speed increases, while pressure drops. You might see steady winds of 10 knots over flat terrain, but then encounter sudden 25-knot gusts in a mountain pass. Always anticipate these acceleration zones during flight planning, especially for helicopters and light aircraft. Now let's talk valley winds. During the day, sunlight heats valley floors. Warm air rises and flows up valley, an anabatic wind. At night, the valley cools, and cold air flows down valley, a katabatic wind. These winds can reverse direction within hours, creating unexpected crosswinds during approach or departure. Check airport charts, NOTAMs, and local procedures if operating in mountainous terrain. Here's a tip: early morning flights in valleys often face calm air with katabatic drainage. Afternoon flights bring stronger up-valley winds, and possibly turbulence if heating is uneven. Another terrain effect is downslope windstorms. When strong winds cross mountains and descend on the lee side, the air compresses and warms, creating hot, dry, and gusty winds. These are also called Fon winds, Chinooks, or Santa Anas. They can dramatically increase surface temperatures in minutes, reduce humidity, and cause severe turbulence and wind shear. If flying near mountainous regions under high wind warnings, stay alert for these local wind events. Now let's explore coastal wind effects. We touched on sea and land breezes earlier, but there's more. When a large pressure difference exists inland and at sea, wind can become channelized along the coast, creating low-level jets or strong coastal gusts. Add in the effects of cliffs, headlands, and urban development, and you've got a recipe for constantly shifting winds. Pilots flying in and out of coastal airports should expect sudden changes in both direction and speed. Let's switch to urban wind effects. Cities are filled with buildings, towers, and other obstacles. These create turbulence, wind shadows, and even rotational eddies near runways. Wind direction can vary significantly from one side of the runway to the other. That's why some city airports like London City, Hong Kong Kai Tak, now closed, or LaGuardia require specialized wind approach procedures. You may see ATIS reporting winds from 250 degrees, while windsock behavior at the threshold suggests something quite different. Here's where pilot judgment is essential. If the aircraft feels unstable or control inputs are large, go around. No shame in being safe. Low-level turbulence in urban areas is often unpredictable, especially on short final. Let's move on to wind funneling. This happens when buildings, hangars, or terrain focus wind into narrow corridors, usually increasing its speed and turbulence. These funnels are invisible on charts but easy to feel in the aircraft. Taxiing or holding near hangars in gusty conditions. Expect uncommanded roll, yaw, or control surface deflection. Secure controls and use caution, especially with light aircraft. Now let's talk about temperature and wind interactions. As surface temperature rises, convection increases. This leads to more turbulent winds near the surface, particularly over dark surfaces or urban areas. This turbulence can create sudden gusts, swirling eddies, or thermal updrafts, especially during final approach. Be ready with proactive control inputs and consider a slightly higher approach speed if gusts are frequent. Conversely, cold, dense air settles into valleys and low spots, often creating calm but stable layers near the surface. These can trap fog, reduce visibility, and mask true wind behavior, especially just after sunrise. Let's talk about windsarcs again. While often overlooked, windsarcs give real-time, localized wind direction and strength. If the windsock is extended fully, the wind is around 15 knots or more. If it's drooping, it's light and variable. Pay close attention to how the windsock moves during your approach. A sudden shift or collapse may signal a wind shear event or thermal gust, important clues that ATIS can't always provide. Next, runway orientation and wind. Some airports have multiple runways aligned for prevailing wind directions. Others don't, especially smaller or older fields. Crosswind takeoffs and landings may be unavoidable. Be familiar with your aircraft's maximum demonstrated crosswind component. It's not a limit, but going beyond it requires excellent control, proper technique, and training. If in doubt, choose an alternate airport. Let's break down a crosswind landing strategy. Use the crab method to align the nose with runway centerline during descent. Transition to a sideslip just before touchdown. Keep upwind aileron and use rudder to align longitudinal axis with runway. After landing, maintain crosswind correction throughout rollout. Let's now examine approach and departure briefings. Before every takeoff or landing, review. Runway alignment. Reported and observed winds. Terrain or obstacles. Possibility of gusts, shear, or funnels. Include a go-around plan. If control becomes unstable, airspeed decays, or gusts intensify, execute the missed approach immediately. It's safer than salvaging a shaky landing. Pilots must also interpret winds aloft forecasts. While mostly for en route planning, they help estimate wind shifts during climb or descent. A strong tailwind aloft might shift into a headwind near the surface, altering descent rates or ground speed. Let's walk through a real example. You re-landing at a high-elevation airport in the afternoon. The runway is surrounded by rising terrain. ATIS reports 19010 G22 kT. Expect thermals from sun-heated slopes, gusty crosswinds, and possible downdrafts on short final. Use a higher approach speed, brief for wind shear, and watch the windsock for confirmation. Consider delaying the approach if conditions exceed your comfort zone. Another example, you taking off from a narrow valley strip. It's morning, the air is calm, but the sun is heating one side of the valley. Expect lateral drift, possible turbulence, and katabatic drainage near the departure end. Adjust your heading and be light on the controls. Let's recap. Topography, buildings, and local heating all affect surface winds. Urban, coastal, and valley winds can change quickly, stay ahead of them. Use windsocks, PIREPs, and personal observation, not just forecasts. Practice crosswind technique and go-around readiness. Plan every approach with wind behavior in mind. In the next episode, we'll wrap up the lower winds series with part 4. We'll discuss advanced wind topics like local wind systems, wind shift strategies, and integrating wind data into professional flight planning. See you in Meteorology number 23, Lower Winds, Part 4.